Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Awakener podcast, the best podcast in the history of the world, for a number of reasons. Number one, the general population doesn't even understand what's happening to them. As we start to enter 2026, we are basically in year 10 of a grand kind of unveiling of the truth. When you tell people the truth, and the truth is unbelievable, you have to re-educate people slowly that what they might believe is not actually true. Where does this go all the way back to? Well, if you go back to 1989 or 1990 and 1991, if you thought that we won this war against the communists, you were deceived. You were tricked. In fact, our government works for the communists. They work for Russia and China, and it's actively the case. And they are actively trying to destroy us so they can create their dream of finally breaking down the Iron Curtain and creating one world government over all humanity. And this is going to be done with us taking the big fat L. We are going to be the ones that are going to be in poverty. We are the ones that are going to be submissive to the East. And that includes everything from religious beliefs to the way we raise our kids to having any kind of ability to speak out against what it's going to being completely surveilled. And for those of you who still can't figure it out, because there's a lot, you are kind of being re-educated, like I said, in all this. So you're starting to realize that at the very end of this is going to be the truth, which I just said. The truth, unfortunately, is going to bring a war about because our enemies are not going to let us turn around and do whatever we want and go back to the way things used to be. But it's okay because at the end of this, the world is going to be turned into something that is worth obviously fighting for. Like I said, good times create weak men create bad times create what? Are we going to be taken over? Are we going to go down with the ship? Or are we going to change around? And the general population, like I told you, they still haven't figured this all out. Most people can't figure out that they're on year 10 of 16 of all this being reversed. And when all these things are being reversed, all of a sudden the governments in the Western world who are working for Russia and China are now starting to get suspiciously anti-American, which I told you from the beginning they would. Now, some of you who listen to this podcast or have for a long period of time, one of you guys should create a kind of YouTube channel of things the Awakener said. The Awakener said this 8 years ago, or the Awakener said this 5 years ago, and it ended up coming true. Obviously, I'm not a predictor of everything, but I do believe there's a bunch of stuff that I said that is true. The latest thing that I said was Canada was going to sign a mutual defense treaty with the European Union. And the reason why is that the globalists and the Soviets and all these people, the communists, their one method of kind of creating world government is at first developing a nation state that subverts the rules of national sovereignty, which means all these nations in obviously, Britain, France, etc., all give up their national rights to this unelected bureaucracy. That's just the Soviet dream, isn't it? Having some kind of governing body that governs all mankind. And then they can pass off laws and there's nothing you can do about it. So if you know this, you would understand that the government of Canada is now going to be fully exposed, and they are aligning themselves with the European Union, who's also going to be fully exposed in this war against the USA. And they're all going to book a power trip ASAP to complete control by any method means possible. And it all starts, I believe it started here in Canada, obviously, in 2015, but we talked about that in the last show. And obviously, with Carney getting in this brand new face, and there's so many things that this guy has to choose in the near future that is going to be a huge signal as to what side of the coin he's on. So number one is the F-35 fighters, which we talked about. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little example of why I think this is key. The F-35 is an awesome fighter. Obviously, doesn't fly Mach 2.5 or anything crazy, but it's completely stealth. It can be armed with nuclear missiles now or nuclear bombs, a bunch of ordnance, and it could literally penetrate into all these countries. You can drop bombs on unsuspecting people who can't trace you. It's a wonderful fighter. Now, that being said, why would Canada not want this? Well, Canada wouldn't want this because, number one, I'm sure the US has technology where they can put malware onto these planes. They can disable them remotely. And although people say, if they go online and they say there's no kill switch on the F-35, it is still possible that the US could disable these planes. So if the United States of America is going to need the Arctic Circle for its protection against this war against Russia and China, Canada's going to get in the way. And why would little Canada get in the way when Russia and China are going to declare a war on the United States of America? Why? Because they work for the global establishment that's being exposed for working for them. So don't be surprised if Carney nixes the F-35s in favor of whatever fourth generation fighter they want to put together. There will be nothing incomparable. Now, remember, the globalists think that Russia eventually and North Korea and a bunch of these are going to do an EMP attack on the States. So for them, an F-35 is maybe something that's not really, they don't need. They just need the ability to be a thorn in the side. And this is what is happening, unfortunately, or what I believe is happening, is the global establishment, the European Union crew, are positioning Canada to be kind of the first horrible thing that the United States of America has done. Now, if you think that they already are ticked off about dropping of bombs on a bunch of Venezuelan drug boats, think how mad they will be when the United States of America annexes Canada and goes all the way to the Arctic Circle. Yes, the Awakener said 6 years ago on this podcast that Canada would be annexed by the United States of America. Why? Well, they need our territory, ladies and gentlemen. They don't care about our people. I don't think they really even need our resources, to be honest with you. They just really need the Arctic Circle for their protection. And they need to be ensured that Canada is obviously going to be in this fight against our enemies. It's a very, very interesting time to be a Canadian. Carney, obviously, there was rumors in the Ottawa Citizen, I believe. It was reported that he's arming 300,000 civil servants in Ottawa and around the country. Can you imagine for a second? You have all these middle-aged women who hate guns, who have voted Liberal for so long, who want everyone's guns taken away, but yet they're going to be given gun training. And they're probably going to be given gun training on the guns that they probably seized and were quote unquote going to Ukraine that Ukraine doesn't need. Why? Well, it's to protect government. Protect government from what? I guess all these soccer moms are going to become like, guns a-blazing when the United States of America rolls into territory, into Canada. Really? This is how desperate we are? I mean, in Hitler, what he did in all-out war, he armed all the children. Every single man that was like 8 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, they were given guns. I mean, what's the difference between that and soccer moms? I mean, if it's an all-out war for control of the world and you don't want the Western world to win this war so we can have, a society of good values, then perhaps soccer moms are the way to go. All this really kind of means is that Canada is heading into a very deep and dark time. And what do I mean by that? The government may appear like it's doing things to kind of benefit us. On one hand, they're going to be giving us maybe pipelines, which is wonderful. I think that we should have energy and resources. They might be into critical minerals, which is all wonderful too for jobs. But the end result, this is all for nefarious purposes. And really, remember how I talked about on the beginning that most of the population cannot see where this is going. They don't know what's happening to them. And most people will be in denial that all this is happening until the boot actually starts to end up on their faces. So this really poses the question, ladies and gentlemen, if the boot comes on Canadians' faces, will Canadians finally wake up enough? And when we finally realize what's happening to us, ladies and gentlemen, hey, the United States of America has backed us for war. They backed us so many times. We helped them. We intervened in World War I. We intervened in World War II. We aided them and assisted them. We're not doing it this time? Why is that? Has America really changed that much that we no longer should offer them assistance? It really poses the question, ladies and gentlemen, what other things this government has up its sleeve. As like I said, when all these things happen, it's going to be amazing to see them. It's going to be amazing to see Canadians change their minds because you'll see people talking about, oh, look what Carney is doing and look at this and look at this. But the end result is everyone is just going to be red-pilled. You can't really do evil things unless you pull down the mask and show people who you are, which is why, Carney, just show people who you are. Go for the majority. Everybody who's blackmailed should be leaving the conservative side, going on the liberal side. You should pass these national laws to shut this podcast down. Do whatever you have to do. Arm the soccer moms. Just admit it. You're with China. China's coming to save our economy in Canada. And that's all there is to it. Anyways, that's all for now, ladies and gentlemen. Go to theawakener.ca. Bye for now.